Hi everybody, it's Sarah with this week's Tech Try It. This week we're going to be trying Google Jamboard. I'll come over here and show you how to get started. So what you're going to do is make sure that you're logged in to Google. You'll come to your waffle, Google Apps waffle, and you're going to find an icon that says Jamboard. Some of you may find that your Jamboard is a little bit further down, so just scroll up and down until you find and see that little circle with the thing that looks like a little J. Click on that and that's going to open your jam. I have some already, so we'll come in and look at an example of one. But if you've never built a Jamboard, the way you're going to do that then is to click on the Add New Jam button in the lower right corner, and that will open up your jam. Okay? So what I'm going to do today is go over a couple of tips and tricks, and I'll show you some of the basic features of Jam. This is a really easy platform to use and is seamless with Google Meet. You could use it in your classroom. It's an excellent tool for both blended learning, asynchronous learning, and full digital learning. So there's lots of options with this. All right, so I've set this up with some of the sticky notes, which are the feature right here that you can go in and add a sticky note. Before I do some modeling with that, I just want to go over a few tips and tricks. Number one is sharing. You have to open up the sharing on your Google Jam so that anyone can edit. So the way to do that, this is really important if you're going to be working with students. You're going to come over to the share button and you're going to click on that, and typically it's going to be you could share it with specific people. What you're going to do is you're going to change that to add it to department, anyone with Department of Defense, and make sure that instead of just viewer, which I have there, you change it to editor. And then you'd be able to copy the link and send that. That link can then be sent in a Google Meet in the chat. It could be assigned through Google Classroom. You could share it on the stream, etc. There's lots of ways. Once they have that and it's set to edit, kids will be able to access and go into it. This is a great tool for this week since our focus in the 4Cs is on collaboration and communication. One thing you're going to have to be really careful about, though, is to make sure your students know that they can add and delete other people's ideas too, so be very respectful once they're in there. The third thing I'm going to recommend is that you name your jam. Use a title that makes sense to students and probably to you as well. So if it's like Unit 2, Lesson 7 and a name, or Unit 2, Lesson 8 and a name, or whatever, small group activity for these specific students, whatever that's going to make sense, you want it to make sense to your kids. The way to do that then is to just come up to the upper left corner and you click on the title. It'll say unnamed when you first start, and then you can just type in whatever, I have that little thing right there, your title is, and then click save. So that's where your title is. The other thing that you're going to want to do that is one of my favorite features of Jamboard is to copy images to put those in. I'm going to show you that in just a minute. The one caveat I would give you is that these images can move. You can't lock them down. So that's important to teach kids when they're annotating text or something like that, to be thoughtful about not grabbing the image, but it's an easy way to add some color and some critical thinking to your jams. You can use Snippet, Snagit, etc., whatever your copying tool is to copy. But the important thing then is once you're in the jam, you're going to place the picture in the jam and then hit Control V. There isn't a paste option in Jamboard other than the keystrokes that I have found. So Control V will allow you to paste it into your jam. All right, one other thing I would recommend is to be consistent with your structure. I'll show you that in just a moment. For example, always put your directions in the upper left corner, and maybe a specific color so that kids know where to look for the directions in a frame. When you're using multiple frames, you want to make sure you have the specific learning target and clear criteria for kids once they're getting started. And with that in mind, as I move over from that idea to the use of multiple frames, this is really a great idea when you're doing some collaboration with kids and you want them to communicate. Kids love Jamboard. It's an idea that if you're going to have kids working, rather than all the kids working on a single space, you could assign students to a specific frame number that they know, okay, I always go to frame 7 or I always go to frame 5, okay, so that they know they can quickly and efficiently get to their frame. All right, let's take a minute and go look at some actual features then. This one I really just showed you some tips and tricks, but let's get started. All right, so we did the title. here's where my frames are, and I can click on that and that will bring up, I can move between my frames. I can also close it with the collapse frame there. I can also move through forward and backward using the arrows, back and forth, okay? So here, again, I've got my directions in a sticky note, and I've copied and did that Control V and put something in for students to look about. This is a resource from 3rd grade, Benchmark Advance, their routines. And this is be something that maybe we could have kids come in and say, what role would you be most comfortable in a group discussion? Why? And I've given the kids some criteria. Then the kids could each go in. You've got this up on the screen and they can grab a sticky note. You're going to want to train your students to maybe if you're using one color that they can pick a different color to share their ideas on to keep it separate. I want to be the game of floor as the discussion facilitator because I like to talk, which those of you who know me know that, and then they just click save. So what you'll see once kids start is their notes will start jumping up on top of each other. The kids, then you can just train them to click on their note and move it around. This becomes really natural and the kids get comfortable with it and they can move them out, they can resize them, make them bigger, make them smaller, etc. You can also train kids that if they want to edit it, they didn't finish their idea, they can go in and hit edit again as one more idea and then click save. So those are ways that all kids in a single conversation can not only share their own ideas and communicate their own ideas, but they can read the ideas of others. Notice no names need to be shared here, etc. So this is just one example. Again, it has the control copy. I have directions, and I shared with you where the resource was from. All right, let's go up and take a look at another example. I'll show you some other ideas. I'm going to come in and move to frame 3. And this is an example from 2nd grade. This is in their Unit 1, page 10 to 14. This is a poem, Can You Sew a Flag, Betsy Ross. And note that this is a task that I've done that Control V on and just put a copy in here. I saw lots of teachers use this specific tool for annotating text during the spring. You could do this in small group back in your classroom. Kids could do this as a center, etc. It just allows lots of options for that. So let's take a look at some of our other tools. If I come over to the left side, I have lots of things here. First, I have a pen. So if I was going to ask kids to annotate text, you can play with some of these. You can change the color. You can change the thickness. Just show you a couple of these features. That's a highlighter. And that's a brush stroke. Okay, I usually recommend with kids who are doing this, if you're doing a group, that you would use the pen or the marker just because it's a little thinner. The kids could then come over and annotate the text. So let's imagine a couple different kids. They love watching this as they're all annotating together and looking at that. Okay, and then, so that's just basic, the pen tool. So that's pretty simple. It's a way for kids to look at annotating. The eraser, let's say somebody changed their mind and they're going to go back and erase it with this option right here. The select tool allows you to select different items and move them, as we talked about earlier. This is the sticky note. I could add a sticky note, circle or highlight, excuse me. Take an important idea about the stars on the flag, okay? And then the kids could go through, let's imagine that you'd already done that, and now I've given the kids a new direction. And the kids might go through then and come back in here, and that they're annotating there. One thing here that kids really love is the laser, and that when you're drawing it, it goes around and then it'll disappear. So look in this area right here for an important idea about the flag. So that goes there. This is another way that you can add an image. I have found the Control V is a little bit quicker, but you could go in here and upload an image from another area, all the ways that you would have a picture, do a Google search, etc. Okay, so that's one way with that. Let's move on to our next item. We're going to go to this next frame. This was an example that we had from an art teacher that worked with some of the math coaches in the spring, just as ideas of other things that you could do with this, bringing images in to do some counting and comparing. Let's imagine that you send this as individual assignment to each child, and they come in here, and you could have the kids then maybe circle things that they would eat on here. So let's say they'd eat some cherries, and they'll eat a plum. Definitely, probably most kids wouldn't eat that. So then they're going to come in here, and then I found 3. So they can even write with that highlighter there. Okay. Or you can train them to, again, go back to the sticky notes. So that's there. So that's another example, not just text, you can also annotate images. Here's an example of a math problem. This is from 4th grade, and I'm using this one specifically because when you're looking at collaboration, I want you to look at thinking about putting a problem in and using this for more than one child, but maybe just a couple of kids to do on a single page. So if I go here, let's imagine that I did 18 and Chalice did 17. So we're working together. We can see each other's thinking, but then we're also going to have the opportunity to check each other's work. Okay. And this is a way that then kids can collaborate with one another in a really quick way, asynchronously or synchronously, and work together. So again, just using those, I'm just trying to give you some ideas of ways that you could use this. For this last one, I wanted to show you how to duplicate or delete a slide. So if I come back to this one, let's imagine I have this set up. I'm going to erase this work that I have in here. And I've set this up for one student. Rather than do this for all the kids and retype it, I can come in here, I can click on the 3 buttons to the side, and I can duplicate that. So you could easily duplicate for multiple students and then just come in to the specific slide and then edit those names. So then I could put in here Joy, and let's say we'll change this name to, oops, I duplicated that. Let me delete that. I want to edit it. Click on that and edit. And Charles. Okay, so then that way, again, the idea that you could train students that typically, you know, you're going to go to slide 6 or you're going to go to frame 7. I'm sorry, they're called frames, or you'll go to frame 8. Then that way, once you've done the flow of a lesson, kids can quickly move to the frame that's their workspace. All right, and then last but not least, I wanted to show you backgrounds and the clear options. So in here, you can come in and change backgrounds with this little click of a button here and show lots of different ways to build things in. There's all these choices here. The clear one is to the side. And then let's say you've started, I'm just going to do some drawing on here. Different kids have different drawings, math problems, etc., and you want to start again. You can also come here and just hit clear frame. That'll clear everything except for the background out, and you'll be good to go. So that is a very quick overview of Pear Deck, of Jamboard for this week. I'm going to go back up to the frames. I'm going to come all the way across here at the top, come back to the tips and tricks. I will place this into our Google Classroom so you can look at this specific Jamboard if you're interested. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. Try one this week, even if it's just 1 or 2 frames, something that you could use with your students this fall. Okay, have a great afternoon.